without the risk of breaking something because I like to move. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. Yeah, move it. Anyway, yeah. So Kerry is, he's down and out for a little while off of his. He could be on crutches, I guess, but I don't think that's. What do you? How do you go into a diplomatic meeting on a pair of crutches? I'm not trying to make fun of Secretary Kerry here. I'm just the obvious optics. It cannot be all that good. So I'm just wondering, what's it going to? How's it look? Yeah. Well, to me, it just seems like it'd be a little odd. Would it not be odd to come into a diplomatic meeting on crutches because you broke it? And aren't you supposed to keep your leg elevated when you break it in order to help keep the swelling and other problems from developing and swelling down? So you're coming in. I don't know. You're gonna have a pillow. Gonna have a pillow on the table or the desk, and you're gonna prop your foot up there. Because some cultures, showing the bottom of your foot or the bottom of your shoe is a huge insult. So I'm just I don't know. I'm just So Lurch is down, and he's got his leg is going to be in traction up in the air for a little while. So it is what it is. Speaking of it is what it is, this is from Vox.com, VOX.com. The most predictable disaster in the history of the human race. This is about Bill Gates and what Bill Gates fears. Now, Bill Gates doesn't fear nuclear annihilation. Bill Gates doesn't fear, a bunch of other things. But what Bill Gates seems to fear, at least what he expresses, is his fear of a flu pandemic. Now, the most predictable disaster in the history of the human race is what Bill Gates talks about. He says that he's very optimistic, and why shouldn't he be an optimist? He's one of the richest men in the world. He basically invented the form of personal computing that dominated for decades, and he runs a foundation immersed in the world's worst problems. Really, child mortality, malaria, polio, but he can see them getting better. They're all getting better. He can measure them getting better. Child mortality rates have fallen by half since 1990. To him, optimism is simply realism. But lately, Bill Gates has been obsessing over a dark question. What's likeliest to kill more than 10 million human beings in the next 20 years? He ticks off the disaster movie stuff like big volcanic explosions, gigantic earthquake, asteroid, but says the more he learns about them, the more he realizes the probability is very, very low. Very low. Then there's war, of course, but Gates isn't that worried about war because the entire human race worries about war pretty much all the time. And the most dangerous kind of war, nuclear war, seems pretty contained, at least for now. So he's not worried about, Iran getting the bomb, or terrorist groups like ISIS or ISIL getting the bomb, because, that's pretty contained for right now. But there's something out there that's as bad as war, something that kills as many people as war, and Gates doesn't think we're ready for it. He says, look at the death chart for the 20th century. He says, because he's the kind of guy that looks at death charts. I think everybody would say there must be a spike for World War I. Sure enough, there's like 25 million. There must be a spike for World War II. But then you'll see other spikes that's as large as World War II right after World War I. And most people say, well, what was that? Well, that was the Spanish flu. So Mr. Gates is not concerned about nuclear annihilation because, hey, everybody's worried about that. That's okay. What he's worried about is the flu. He calls it the most predictable threat in the history of the human race. Pandemic diseases have happened numerous times throughout human history, and this is true. And it happens for a number of reasons, and most of it is due to lack of decent, clean hygiene and understanding of hygiene. And that is changing, but it also has a lot to do with the mobility of the human race. And our mobility is a lot faster today than it was, back before World War II. Simply because, we can move faster because we have travel vehicles that can move us faster. However, we can also pretty much isolate ourselves faster and more successfully because of technology. Where we had to do and interact with people before a lot in order to survive, we don't have to do that today. Because of technology allows us to be a little less personally interactive with one another, good or bad. It is what it is, good or bad. I'm not going to say that we haven't suffered because of it as a race. Oh, by the way, speaking of race, there's this. Look, folks, the reason why I'm bringing this one up is now I just scratched the surface on it earlier today, so I don't know the full scope, but evidently there is another race of humanoid beings that we know nothing about that existed in human history, because evidently there's some sort of DNA, humans today, we supposedly have some DNA trace of Neanderthals and a few other ancient, humanoid type of beings, but there's one that they can't identify, evidently. And it's from, and I guess there's more than one, but there's this one that seems to heavily influence certain human beings in this planet, different ethnic groups that they can't identify. And I've always said, kind of half jokingly, maybe at some time on this planet's history, there were multiple kinds of humanoids. We don't. Well, we kind of get the hint in the Bible that there were giant beings. That we know that that there were beings who were demonoid, fallen angels, and others. And I'm thinking, well, maybe there were some like elf-like people, not aliens, but maybe there was other species of humanoids here, and we've integrated. Because you ever look at somebody, there are certain people. You ever look at certain people and say, man, they kind of look like an elf should look like. Look, we know that a lot of our myth and lore has some basis in fact, not fiction. So, when we talk about other types of humanoids like elves, maybe these types of people, like giants, actually existed before the Great Flood. And I think the Great Flood changed everything. The Noah's Flood. Look, if you don't know, people don't know, I'm a Christian. Now, whether or not you say that, Rod, the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. I don't care if you say the Earth is 6,000 years old or 6 billion years old. The Bible story can still stand. And we have evidence, scientific and archaeological evidence, that the Bible is accurate. So, There's this whole notion that there could be, maybe there was a Lord of the Rings type of thing going on way back in the day. We don't know what happened before Noah. We don't know who populated or what populated before Noah's Ark. Just saying. But anyway, I digress. It's there for you. Just go look. You can do like I do half the time. You just something comes across your feed or whatever whatever you're doing on the web or internet or on your phone or what have you, or even on Facebook. Sometimes you can be led down the rabbit hole. Just go ahead, follow the rabbit hole. Just follow it, folks. A lot of times it's fun. I mean, sometimes you come across stuff that is just like, are you kidding me? There are people who actually believe this kind of stuff. I mean, really? And then you're like, wow, this is fascinating. Other times you just say, it's fascinating. I never knew. This is cool and interesting. Go down the rabbit hole every once in a while, folks. Just do it. You'll never know where it's going to take you, the information and knowledge that you can gain from it. You might find a new hobby. You might find a new interest or a new passion. You never know. If you get the opportunity, and those opportunities come by quite often, daily, just go down the rabbit hole. Don't be stuck, it's not going to change your most of the time, it's not going to change your full perception of the world. And let me tell you something, when I go down the rabbit hole to various things and I come back, I realize, a lot of times I'll realize, yeah, I was absolutely right about this type of thing or my political beliefs or this stuff. Do it. For you liberals especially, you'll learn stuff that you realize you didn't know, that the universe is not so limited like you think it is. And it might open you up, and you're more likely to become a conservative after going down a few rabbit holes. So I wholeheartedly suggest and definitely promote and encourage people to go down the rabbit hole. Because as in that movie, was it really a movie? It wasn't a documentary, but that movie, nonfiction. We don't know bleep. Go down the rabbit hole because you don't know Jack. And, it's also just a lot of fun because you just come across stuff and you start to realize that the people that say they have all the answers, you start to realize they don't have the answers. And half the time they're just talking out there, what? They have no clue. And frankly, that is the current crop of Democratic candidates. They have no clue about anything, really. All they're interested in is power and ruling you, not governing you, ruling over you. They don't go down the rabbit hole at all. Because if they did, they'd realize that they were wrong, for one, and you would be a lot smarter than they are. Trust me. Well, I'm out of time for today, folks. We'll be back here tomorrow. Same back time, same back channel. I'm Rod Eccles. This has been the Rod Eccles Show. I'm out.